Response video to Pyro on the subject of virtual reality again. Anyway, there's lots of interesting side subjects to this subject, so I think it's a subject worth talking about. So anyway, he's back on the robots thing now. That we can create a world with robots in it that'll do everything we need to do, all the hard stuff, all the nasties, and that people can basically live lazy and comfortable lives and let the robots do all the real work. And sure, in theory, to a point, that's possible. But we see the world now, the way it exists right now. Labor's dirt cheap, and still, there's a lot of people can't afford it. So we can't even afford humans to do our work, and humans, are really cheap. And so these robots are going to have to be, mass-produced out of some kind of materials. They're going to be, in theory, I don't think a robot's going to be real cheap. It's going to have some kind of upfront price tag to it that would leave a lot of people out of luck. And it's, I'm all for automizing a lot of processes that can be done by machines. And I've sort of been disappointed that we haven't progressed further. I mean, I was working with machines capable of learning, how to do a certain process redundantly over and over and over again, 25 years ago, and we really haven't. I'm just surprised how much hasn't been automated. But regardless, I don't. It just really doesn't get to the core issues, which are the insatiability of the human psychology. I'll make this point again, but we see it. I mean, Howard Hughes is not an aberrant. Okay, he's a little bit too close to the norm for what happens to people's psychology when they have everything in the real world. They want, they just get pretty neurotic. It's just a sad truth, because that's what happens to our psychology. Is just meant to keep chasing, and we have to keep contriving something to chase or something to run away from. And so we either get bogged down by, you'll have rich people will be competing over whose yacht is the longest, and every year they'll have a new yacht made because somebody else built one that's 3 inches longer. I mean, it's just ludicrous stuff that people get caught up in. And look at our world. I mean, automobiles ought to be dirt cheap, and they're not. And they're not because we, as people, don't sit there and reward the efficiencies of standardization, and that's what a robot world will require, is a lot of standardization. And all these individuals want to be, whatever, artists or whatever. They all want to do things their way and have it their way, and at any rate, they're not doing it on their own. Maybe they would accept some standardization if some force was to impose it, but they're certainly not encouraging it in this free-ish market kind of system we have. So I don't see how we're going to ever progress to some world that's going to have the standards, the standardization that efficiency would require. And because it does. To be efficient, it requires standards. It requires, instead of 17,000 kinds of automobile, it requires you to have 6 or 7, to choose from. So whatever. I mean, and it still doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really deal with the core issue. You're still going to have technology. We're still going to have to explore the human mind to deal with problems of disease and pain and suffering. So we're going to go there. I mean, there's there's just nothing that's going to stop us from eventually having to get into that brain and figure out ways to get around some of the human conditions that exist. And so my argument would be, as long as we're going in there anyway to fix things, we might as well fix it all the way. And you're talking about pennies versus mega dollars in terms of efficiency. I mean, once you have systems for maintaining a human body, I mean, it could be dirt cheap in terms of the economy. The price per human life equation would get so small because you don't have to create a physical universe for them. You don't have to create I'm living here in a cold climate, and so this entire house is going to be heated. I mean, I block off part of it, and it's cooler in half of it than it is in this room. But even by doing that, there's still a lot of space that has to be heated to keep me comfortable. I mean, obviously in a virtual reality that space is made very small. I need an environment that has certain enrichments that's appealing and gives me food to live on, so to speak, intellectual food, stimulation, interest. That all that doesn't come. It's not free. Robots aren't going to be able to produce all of that. You're still going to have the problem of people competing with each other. People are still going to compete for the prettiest woman. You're still going to have a lot of neuroses develop in the human psychology that you're not going to be able to fix. And with robots, it's just not going to do it. So, I mean, the first major argument I would make to you is that creating the physical infrastructure, whether by robotics or by slave labor, is still incredibly expensive. Versus the just creating an electronic image inside the brain itself. The illusion of something. The illusion is dirt cheap compared to the physical reality. The second argument would be is that the illusion can be perfect. It can be anything. It has unlimited creativity, doesn't have to obey the laws of physics, doesn't have all these restrictions that the real world will always have. You're not going to get past those in the real world. But you can get past those barriers in a virtual world. The one I've brought up just recently is the idea that you get rid of all the social vice, you get rid of all the crime, all the deviance, all the antisocial behavior, including blowing up the world kind of thing. All of that goes away in virtual reality. The risks to our survival are eliminated if it's done right, and you can't do that in reality either, with robots or no robots. So I mean, I think like I said, I have nothing against automating. I mean, I think it'd be great for us to work on some kind of machine, where you just, you put a lumber package in and it builds a house, that kind of stuff I think would be great. I'm kind of surprised that some kind of rich capitalist hasn't tried to do something like that, because just the economies, in terms of labor and whatnot, over the long run would be, I think, substantial. I guess some of it is done in the sense that now we modularize, home construction. So, modules can be made by machines and then transported to a site. So in some ways we've done the half measure, the halfway point. But when you said robots too, you imply something. Robots imply some sort of thing, sort of machine that is self-functioning and self-controlling and self-operating, and the systems that would be feeding or taking care of humanity in a virtual reality would just be systems. They would just be machines. I don't think they could qualify as robots. They'd pump blood in, pump blood out, waste, food, nurturants, whatever. It would just be an in-out kind of system, very, very mechanical, that we wouldn't be replacing, some sort of, hospital room environment or something, and we wouldn't be having robotic nurses and robotic doctors and robotic this and robotic that. And we might have systems that are controlled by consciousnesses in the virtual reality, could be controlling those devices, those machines. But whatever. I just think it's. I hate to use the word impractical because everybody's accusing me of that, but I just think it's completely impractical to think you can solve the problem with a physical environmental solution. Sort of my point is that the consciousness itself is not designed to be satisfied, and so you have to trick it, you have to cheat, you have to break the laws of nature and physics to really do it right, to give consciousness that the environment it's going to really flourish in, because it's not made to flourish here. It's made to serve a simple function, consumption and reproduction. That's what it was invented to do. And we're using it in ways that it was never intended to be used. We're expecting from it, and we have a standard for its treatment and its welfare, and a lot of things that had nothing to do with the equation that created the instrument in the first place. And so I think it's just completely impractical to keep trying to force it to stay in the environment of its creation. It's moved beyond its creator. It's smarter than its creator. It deserves a better environment, or the richest environment that can be created. And so that's where we should head. And I would just argue that the technology that would get us to your world is the very same technology that could create that virtual world. So we might as well go with the virtual, because we can optimize the cost efficiency by 100-fold. So to me, that makes it a lot more practical, because it will be a lot cheaper and a lot more expandable, and it'll just have every advantage. I mean, it's it's kind of like comparing a modern computer to a digital watch or something. I don't know. It's just, there's no comparison. The virtual reality would have so many more features, and it would acclimate and accommodate so much more of our psychology.